Okay, so let's talk about what we did last week. What pieces of information can I get out of this? Can you tell me? Tristan? Do you remember from Friday? There's a bunch of stuff in here. Florencia? You get what? You find your x. Your x-intercept. That's what we're finding. But what pieces of information can I get out of just looking at it right there? What? Almost the vertex. Your axis of symmetry. Parsa, can you tell me where the axis of symmetry is?
I have no idea.
You have no idea, but at least you remember. Negative b over 2a. Good. Does anybody have any other pieces of information that we can get out of it? Let's hear it. Tristan? The discriminant. What's the discriminant give me? Whether or not it has two solutions, or one solution, or no solutions. Right, Philip? Want to put your phone on my desk? I don't want to walk that far. What about the whole thing, though? You guys remember that? We talked about it a little bit. This doesn't just give me how many solutions I have. It also tells me how far away I am, the whole thing in green. It says how far away I am from the axis of symmetry. Right? Let's look at it. All right. So far we've used lots of methods to find zeros. Can we name them? Factoring. Graphing. I heard square rooting. And now we're using the quadratic formula. You guys are awesome. Okay. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to split it up. Because this is saying two different things. It's saying negative 4 is being divided by 2 and the square root of 100 is being divided by 2. Is that correct? So I'm going to split it up. Negative 4 is being divided by 2, plus or minus the square root of 100 is being divided by 2. You guys agreed that this part is my axis of symmetry. So that means that this part is my axis of symmetry. So my axis of symmetry is at negative 2. I'm going to go ahead and graph that. So I'm at negative 2. That's my axis of symmetry. And my roots, what do I do those in green? My roots are right here. The square root of 100 is 10 divided by 2, which is 5. So I'm going to go in the positive direction 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to go in the negative direction 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Does that make sense? And then if I had my whole, if I had the whole thing, ax squared plus bx plus c, the last thing I would be able to find would be, my c would tell me where my, we're just going to make it up, would tell me where my y-intercept is, which would also give me symmetry on the axis of symmetry, and then I could graph it, right? So we could get all that from the quadratic formula. We could totally graph. Now, if I were to finish this, normally we would say, so x equals negative 2 plus 5, which is 3, or negative 2 minus 5, which is negative 7. Is that what we have graphically? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Negative 7. So when you look at this, you should be saying to yourself, it's got two solutions. See that? Thumbs up, thumbs down. What do you guys think? Alrighty, I'll take it. We'll go about that slow. So I'm going to erase this, and this, and this, and I'm going to ask you guys, I'm going to ask you guys to tell me what my solutions would be there. I'm going to rewrite it first. So x equals -4 over 2, which isn't that the same thing we had before? All these are going to have the same axis symmetry, plus the square root of 4 over 2. Do you want me to do this one together with you? Just going to let you guys be able to do it in your heads, right? So here's my axis of symmetry, and here's my, how far away from the axis of symmetry I'm going to go. So I would say my solutions are at -2, excuse me, I want to put that in color, -2, and then I'm going to go plus or minus. If this square root of 4 is 2, and 2 divided by 2 is 1, so I should be able to go over 1 and over 1. So x is going to equal -1 or -3, which is exactly what I have done if I did it algebraically. -2 plus 1 is -1, -2 minus 1 is -3. You guys do this one on your whiteboard. Okay, I'm liking what I'm seeing, so I'm going to take these roots off. So we have the same thing. So this equals, I'm going to split it in half, -2 over 2, plus or minus. The square root of 0 is 0, and 0 divided by 2 is 0, so I'm not going to go in the positive direction or the negative direction. If I'm at my axis of symmetry and I'm not going, I don't have any other zeros, then where's my 0? It's on the axis of symmetry. That's my only root. So here's a recap. If it's a positive number underneath the square root, I have how many roots? 2. If it's a 0 underneath the square root, I have 1, because I don't go over on the axis of symmetry. I don't go right or left, I just stay right there. That's my only root. There's only one more case. Oh, let's look at this one. Can you guys do that one in your head? Without doing any work, just show me on your whiteboard how far away are we going to go from the axis of symmetry? Plus or minus what? No work, just in your head. You guys got this, huh? Some of you were writing the complete answer, but that's okay. I just didn't see the side room. Can you guys hold them up? Yes. You guys are doing amazing. Okay, so I already know that my axis of symmetry, because I've done it on all of them, right, is -2. And then in your heads, you should have been able to say, oops. Lucas, I'm recording. All right. So -2 plus or minus, the square root of 36 is 6, and 6 divided by 2 is 3. So we're going to go plus or minus 3, which gives us x equals 1 or -5. Got this one. You should be able to tell me right away you're done, right? So it's at -2. right? We'd say that x is equal to 2. Sorry, negative 2. So my only 0 is at negative 2, 0. We should really be doing that more. This is 1, 0. This is negative 5, 0. If I were to make one change this way, that's what I would do. Yeah? Okay. That's this one. Did you do that this morning and I just didn't see it? What would this one look like? Well, let's talk about it. Mrs. Mahler, you like when I talk about myself in the third person? Mrs. Mahler talked about squares and square roots, and they're inverses of each other. So the the conceptual representation of this would be that, right? So what's the square root of that then? Is it 2? Is it negative 2? It'd have to be that. Does that make sense that one side of my square is 2 units and one of them is negative 2 units? It couldn't be because guess what? Area is not negative. Right? So you don't get a root with a negative area. Make sense? So what's happening here is I don't have any roots. We call them complex. As soon as you have a negative number under there, you have 2 complex roots. They're not on the x-axis, or sometimes they call them imaginary roots. Okay? And we're going to talk about imaginary tomorrow. Okay? Actually, you can't just put it anywhere. No, not on the axis. It's not anywhere on the axis of symmetry. I could actually find my vertex. How would I find my vertex on this one? How do we get a vertex? Talk with your groups. How do you get a vertex? I'm not going to be able to actually do it right now because I don't have my quadratic equation. But how do you normally find a vertex? Yes, it's where it starts. What? Okay, in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You guys are doing an amazing job at thinking things through, but unfortunately on this one, I think because there's it's become kind of procedural that you're getting lost. Okay? Where is the vertex located? On the axis of symmetry. I heard some of you say, well, you take negative b over 2a, and then you like you don't know where to go from there. Like you get lost in the process. Don't think about the formula, think about the process. If I want to get to the vertex, the first thing I have to do is go to the axis of symmetry. What's the axis of symmetry? X equals negative 2. So if I have a quadratic equation, and I want to figure out how far I'm going to go up or down on the axis of symmetry, I take 2 and I substitute it in, right? So I could get my vertex from this, although I don't have this piece right here. There's one more thing that I could use to graph it. Does anybody know? If I had this, there's one more thing I could pull out of this right here. The y-intercept. Right there. So that would be enough to graph it. I could get my vertex, and I could get my y-intercept, and that would be enough to graph it. But it doesn't have any roots because it's negative underneath the radical. Okay, so now that we have these pieces of information, let's finish these up. And this is what your homework is going to be. Let's see. Students will be able to use the quadratic formula to solve equations. Specifically, I'm not just solving equations. What am I solving? What are we finding, Allison? What do I use the quadratic formula to find? Zeros, right? It gives me the axis of symmetry. It gives me how far away I go from the axis of symmetry. It gives me my root specifically. It gives you all kinds of stuff, right? Okay. So let's get this in your notes. There's one thing we have to add to this. If I have, let's use red. What did we just learn right now? What were we just talking about? This is my discriminant. It tells me how many roots. If it's a positive number underneath the square root, how many roots do I have? If it's a 0 underneath it, how many roots do I have? 1. And if it's a negative under the discriminant, how many do I, underneath it? I have 2 complex roots. The whole thing isn't the discriminant, guys. Sometimes it looks a little bit funny when we do that. It's not the whole thing. The discriminant is this, what's underneath it. What's underneath it. What's underneath it, right? That's what specifically what the discriminant is. So I'm going to go ahead and put this down and let you guys write these in your notes. Okay. Pencils down. Let me do this one. And I think I'm going to start with a graph. I'll make it a little bit smaller. Put a graph over here. Okay. So what do I know so far? Let's see. I think I'll make it purple. What do I know so far? Anything? I know my y-intercept. So at 0, 1, I've got a y-intercept. All right, let's talk about the discriminant. So I've got b squared minus 4ac. Why do I hear so much movement behind me? I shouldn't hear anything. You should have pencils down, right, Tristan? So my b is right here, 6, and my a is right here, which is 4, and my c, I already looked at, is 1. Is this factorable? That's what I should have done in the beginning. Is it factorable? Let's see. 1 and 1, x and x. If I make this a 4 and a 1, does 1x and 4x make 6x? No. The only other way to factor it would be 2 and 2. Does 2x and 2x make 6x? So this is not factorable. This is a no. No, it's not factorable. All right, so I'm going to find my discriminant by 36 minus 16 equals 20. So my discriminant underneath the square root sign is 20, which means I have how many roots? Show me with your fingers. We've got 2. We've got 2 roots. So let's find them. So I'm going to use the quadratic formula. I want to find my root, so x equals a negative boy. Couldn't decide whether or not to go to a radical party or b squared and miss out on 4 amazing chicks that was all over at 2 a.m. But guess what? I don't need all this. I already found it. You see how valuable it is to find your discriminant before you even start? I don't need to do all of that because I already know that my discriminant is 20. So now I just need that b, which I already found was 6, and my a, which I found is 4. So if I continue with this, I would get x equals negative 6. I'm going to say negative 6 over 8. I'm going to break it up now. So this is my axis of symmetry, and this part is how far I'm going to go away from the axis of symmetry. Correct? That we were investigating. Sarah, pencil down. I'm going to come over and be really dramatic and break somebody's pencil. Okay. Okay. Right. Plus or minus. The square root of 20 is, let's see, 4 times 5 is inside of there. So square inside of that would be 2 squared times 5 all over 8. Sorry. Hold on. I'm just letting people process. Don't ask questions yet. So x equals, if I simplify 6 and 8, I would divide both of them by 2, and I get negative 3/4 plus or minus. I'm going to take a 2 out. 2 root 5 over 8. I can further simplify that. Be left with a 4. So really, we're done at x equals negative 3/4 plus or minus the square root of 5 divided by 4. Those are my 2 solutions. They don't mean much like that, though, do they? Let's talk about what it means. Let's go back up to our graph. Should I make the mistake, Miss Liz, and we can figure it out? No? The same mistake I made in the last class? I did not make a mistake on purpose, but it served as a teachable moment. You want me to make it? You want me to make a mistake? No? Okay. Yeah, let's learn from our mistakes. I'm going to make the same exact mistake I made in the last class. Okay, so let's talk about this. This is my axis of symmetry, negative 3/4. So I'm going to go up to my graph, and I'm going to graph negative 3/4. Negative 3/4 is going to be kind of almost at 1. Correct? All right, and then let's estimate our roots. So I don't know how much root 5 is, but I do know how much root 3 is. Sorry, root 4 is. Plus or minus, we're going to say about. This is about. How much is root 5? About. 2.1. Wait, what? So, let me make my mistake, those of you that already caught it, okay? So I would go a little more than 2, and a little more than 2, and then my axis of symmetry and my y-intercept right there, it would be like this. So my graph would look like this. What's wrong with that? That's not possible. Why, Shreya? Why is that not possible? Because it's positive. It's not negative. So where did I make my mistake? Where's my mistake? Why the 2.1? No, it's closer. The square root of 5 is closer to the square root of 4. We didn't divide by 4. We didn't divide by 4. So let's just pretend that it was 4, the square root of 4, because that's pretty close, right? So what's the square root of 2 divided by 4? I'm sorry, the square root of 4 divided. Let's do this. What's the square root of 4 divided by 4? What's that? A half. Right? So, I'm really only supposed to go over a half, which is really small, and a half. Now, would that make sense? A half, well, hold on. A half, I'd go over a half and over a half. Now, does this graph make sense? Yes, it does. It has to be up because it's positive. This is positive. When I saw that it was negative, I knew I was wrong because this would have to be a negative number for it to be pointing down. Right? But it's positive, so I knew it had to be pointing up. Okay? Another one? Okay. I think I need to do another one, and then you guys can do one on your own. Yes, I can go back. What's your question? Can you go down? I sure can. I was estimating, so instead of making it a square root of 5, I made it a square root of 4 so I could estimate my roots. And the square root of 4 is 2, and 2 divided by 4 is a half. Yeah, I just didn't go all the way there. Would that help? So it would be about negative 3/4, and we're going to go positive and negative 1/2. All right. Okay, so I'm going to do this one all the way through, okay? And then we're going to get you your homework back so you can do one of these in your homework, right? And then we're going to just finish it up there. So I'm going to tell you right now that that's not factorable. We're not going to waste our time trying to figure it out. It's not factorable. So I'm going to start with my discriminant. So I'm going to say, I'm tired of talking over people. So I'm going to start with my discriminant, which is b squared minus 4ac. My b is that whole thing, negative 6. My a is 4. And my c is 15. What else is 15? What else does the 15 stand for? Good. My y-intercept. Okay. Okay. Ready for some mental math? You don't need a calculator for this, guys. 36. Okay. 4 times 4 is 16. 16 times 15 is, that's hard, right? But how much is 4 15s? Well, how much is 2 15s? 30. So how much is 4 15s? So what's 60 times 4? What's 6 times 4? 240. Add a 0, 240. Right? Isn't that a lot easier than 16 times 15? Negative 240. Good. Common core number son. Right? So 36 minus 260 is how much? Where did I get 260? 240. Thank you. 240. Okay, let's do a little bit more, guys. 240, right? If I were to ignore the negative 2 or the 2, what's the difference between 40 and 36? A 4, right? So how much is it? 204, negative 204? I would still have 4 negatives left over, right, if I canceled out 36s? Okay, so I can stop there. Why can I stop? I don't have any solutions. This is negative. So I would say I can stop it. I don't have any solutions. My solutions are 2 complex solutions. I don't have any solutions. Let's graph it. I can still graph it, right? I'm going to borrow this graph right here because I like it. Copy, and I'm going to paste it. Okay, so I can't graph any solutions, but I have other stuff I could graph. I can graph the y-intercept, which is 15, which is like about here. I know my axis of symmetry. What's my axis of symmetry? Let's find it. My axis of symmetry is negative b over 2a, or negative 6 over 2 times 4. So that's negative 6 over 8, which is negative 3/4. So it's the same as last one, right? Like that. This is a pretty easy graph to do because if it's that close, it must look something like that, right? It's way up there. It's not going to come down and cross that x-axis. Look. I think there's a spy among us. Isn't this cute? Well, it's a Persian, and they have that smooshed face like this, and this is a Himalayan, and that's a chinchilla Persian. Actually, that's my favorite right there. Yeah. I used to breed these Himalayans. Breed them. Okay, so why did I put that silly picture with this one? Allison, why did I put that silly picture with this one? Okay. Okay, give me a second. Can somebody tell me why I put this silly picture with this one? Kayla? Because you don't have a C. Right? But I do have a C. I just have to move that over. Allison, can we come back to it? Will you remind me? Thank you. Okay, so now all I want you guys to do on your whiteboards is find the discriminant for me first, because I want to make sure we all have the same answer before we move on. Okay, Lucas got really excited right now. I like that. Okay, so I have my b squared, so minus 4ac. So my b is positive 8, and my a is, there's nothing here. So it's a 1. And my c is negative 13. Okay, you guys want to listen to what Lucas said? Of course you do. Okay. So 64 minus, well, I don't know how much 4 times 13 is, but I know that it's a negative, and a negative makes a positive. And then 4 times 10 is 40, and 4 times 3 is 12, which gives me 52. So you guys got 116. All right. So I'm going to put that into my quadratic formula now, but that's what you guys are going to do. Should I just go quickly because we are running out of time? I know. And I want you guys to copy this one into your homework. So let me just go ahead and go. All right, guys. So to find my solutions, I need everybody's eyes up here and mouths closed and pencils down. Good. So x equals negative b plus or minus the square root. I already have what goes in here. It's 116 all over 2 times a. My b is 8. Am I correct? Yes. And my c is negative 13. Oh, it's supposed to be a. All over 2a. My a is 1. So I'm going to get negative 8 over 2 plus or minus. So this is my axis of symmetry. What's my axis of symmetry, folks? Negative 4. And then we're going to go plus and minus. Let's see. Let's break down 116. 2 goes into 11 5 times with 16 left over. That's 8. 2 goes into 5 2 times with 18 left over, which is 9, and I can't break that down. So I get 2 squared times 29 over 2, which is 2 root 29 over 2, which is, those cancel, and I'm left with negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 29. And then you say, but Mrs. Muller, I don't know what that looks like. What would that look like on a graph? What number is pretty close to 29? No, that's a square. 25 would be closer. So we'd say it's about plus and minus 5, about. I just want to graph that really quick. So my axis of symmetry is at negative 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going about plus or minus 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And what would my y-intercept be? Negative 13. Does that make sense? For it to be down here, negative 13? Means to be over here, negative 13. This is how I would draw this, guys, because you're going to have to draw stuff like this soon. If it's off the graph, that means my vertex is way down here, right? So I would do this, and I would stop, and then I would come back up. Make sense? Okay, copy that one down. You guys did great today. On your homework?